And in the top left-hand side, it is none other than Neeb for Onsite Gaming.
All right. So we got our two undefeated players here facing off in a PvP from Group B. I really do think this could actually be a fun series where people are surprised by a potential upset pulled off by DisK. But I think that what's kind of tough is that while DisK has been trying to mix in more like aggression or cheese and stuff into his gameplay, I think he still is kind of like a macro straight up player at heart. It's hard for him to kind of break out of that sometimes. And I think Neeb is also kind of similar in a lot of ways. So I really do expect that this will be like a more normal standard style in game.
Yeah, we'll see about that. We'll see about that, Ralphs. I mean, for the time being, they're pretty much mirrored with 2 gases and 2 gateways and all the good stuff that you would expect from a PvP. So the first deviation is likely to be what units they choose to make. And yeah, what do you think? Do you think maybe DisK will go for the riskier, like Stalker Sentry opening? Will Neeb match or?
DisK, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if he just went for like double Stalker, double Sentry, kind of like the middle of the road style thing. I wouldn't be surprised if Neeb, I'm like taking total shots in the dark here, but if Neeb went double Adept, but no, he's actually going to go Stalker Sentry, it looks like DisK is, which is actually pretty middle of the road also. That's like the middle of the road opening. Neeb is going to go for the double Stalker opening, but I actually feel like, funny enough, I see double Stalker more often these days than Stalker Sentry.
Yeah, I think that Stalker Sentry, like I said, is the greedier opening, and I think what Neeb is doing is the more, I guess, safe opening, right? Because if you go Stalker Sentry, your first 2 units are a little bit weaker, but you get a little bit more energy on the Sentry. So yeah, this is what I would have suggested as far as like DisK taking a little bit of a risk early on. It's not a super big risk by any means, but it is that it speaks to where the players see themselves as well, right? In terms of like how they see themselves in this particular matchup relative to their opponent. So Neeb is gonna make the double Stalker. It's gonna be super safe against everything, and it's gonna allow him to move out on the map and kind of scout and see what he can find. And yeah, he's gonna follow up with a Sentry of his own. So no real chance for further aggression from Neeb here.
Yep, just light little pokes over here. Has to be careful about a potential of like a force field or something if he got into a weird angle up against the wall, but not going to happen. Takes some damage, and Neeb is going to go ahead and back off toward back home. But yeah, Hallucinate Phoenix coming out there nice and early on from DisK with that first Sentry. So he gets a full scout out on the Twilight Council that Neeb is going for, and DisK a little bit later to throw down his own Twilight Council, but it is basically mirrored builds. Yes, it took different paths to get there with double Stalker to double Sentry versus a Stalker Sentry in 2 different rounds, but at the end of the day, we're all in the exact same place.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's gonna be a little bit of a blink transition. Of course, if we wanna look at the aftermath, DisK should have a little bit more energy remaining on the sentries that he did make just by virtue of having made one earlier, but that is the only advantage that he's going to have. He did make an extra sentry as well as compared to Neeb by the looks of it. Not sure what that's meant to accomplish, and Neeb is going to find the gas perhaps from skipping that extra sentry to make a fast Dark Shrine here.
Oh, this is actually really cute too, because the way that that's actually proxied, no way is DisK actually going to scout that. That would be a massive scout, and yeah, he's gonna find it. Wow, DisK. Was he just counting the pylons in Neeb's base with the Hallucinate Phoenix and saying, "No, you're missing something"? Because he did see 3 pylons.
I mean, maybe that would be a difficult thing to count, but yeah. I think he could have done it. There is a 4th pylon on the 3rd base of Neeb. So it is likely that DisK has taken some sort of information, or also that he's just moving around to try to check for proxies himself. Because Neeb, I think what you were saying is it's good because he's relying on the scout information of DisK as well, right? Like he has triple sentry, so he's going to hallucinate constantly. Neeb has to account for that, so he thinks he can get away with a proxy DT shrine.
Well, yeah, I think even if the DTs don't directly do a ton of damage, they can still be pretty damn useful, especially with making Archons, or just even the fact that it means that your opponent has to make observers, and you can only have one observer in one place at a time, so you have to make a second observer potentially. And it's not always easy to guess exactly as you're taking a third base where those DTs are going to swing in from. So Neeb able to already put some pressure on without the DPs. Gonna try and find an angle. Goes for force fields and locks out a lot of DisK's army on the top of the ramp while trying to go after this Nexus. Loses one sentry, but he's still chipping away at the Nexus little by little.
Yeah, that was a little sloppy actually by Neeb on two instances. DisK goes forward with the first blink, then Neeb blinks back for kind of no reason, where he could have just walked back. And then there were a couple of stalkers that hadn't blinked, and he just kind of blinked them for no reason. And DisK on the counter force fields catches one of those stalkers that had blink on cooldown and punishes it actually alongside a sentry. So if Neeb wasn't needlessly blinking around, I think at least he saves one extra stalker. So.
Well, at the end of the day, the DT not being able to get a whole lot done, and also, like you said, the attack not able to accomplish a whole lot, especially after he ends up losing those sentries. DisK is going to be a little bit more confident about how things are shaking on out. Neeb still has the potential to get a single hallucination out at a time every so often, but it is going to take a lot longer for Neeb to get those scouting information units out. So instead just sends it adept across the map, but misses the army moving in from the south side. DisK also up 4 stalkers heading into this little potential trade here.
Yeah, this that could finish the shade here, and it's gonna actually get trapped by the probes of DisK pretty promptly there. They are in range of extra units and as well as a shield battery, so that was never going to amount to much. Really good force fields here. Will trap the Immortal at the very least. That guy cannot blink, but is it enough? As DisK feels happy to continue to take the engagement. The Concave, however, should favor Neeb. A really nice force field there to make it less so from DisK, but yeah, this was not a favorable trade for DisK at all. I mean, just working with an unfavorable Concave means that Neeb is going to be able to take a huge advantage here as he continues to do damage onto the third base with those 2 adepts, which can one-shot probes. The 1 DT will eventually push this away, but I think Neeb did plenty of damage here, more than he probably would have wished that he did.
Well, I mean, I imagine that DisK is still gonna have gotten a lot of damage done over there, and you're definitely right. Like, some damage was done, but man, I think if DisK is able to keep sniping off some of these units, he has to be careful about all these zealots that are kind of slow walking forward, because even if they don't have charge, they are absorbing a lot of the damage over here. DisK, once he cleans up the zealots, so he can pounce in on that Immortal if he doesn't fear the reinforcements. He is going to respect the potential of those reinforcements. Is not going to go for the aggressive blink forward, backs off for the moment, and DisK is on just this pure stalker composition with the Immortal count starting to grow back up again for Neeb.
Yeah, and I think I said Neeb took a good engagement there, but I meant DisK took a good engagement there, going up that ramp and with a better concave, working with a better concave. So yeah, and now Neeb on the chase. So Neeb was the one on the back foot there with the DT. I confused the two because I looked at the quality of the play and I thought, wow, yeah, Neeb, that's got to be Neeb. But no, it was DisK. I mean, taking the much better position there, like just positionally, the fight was just in favor of him the entire time. But now Neeb is beginning to stabilize with the Immortals, and yeah, like you said, I mean, army complexity is certainly in his favor as this game continues to scale.
Yeah, I also don't blame you for. I always associate Neeb as being blue because I think he oftentimes was blue in a lot of the games he played. I don't know, his former team Ting and stuff, I think has part of the association for me. So I have been also mixing up Neeb as being the blue Protoss player a few times. always fun to try and get over that kind of stuff. We do actually have DisK, despite not being the player that went for a Dark Shrine or anything, has gotten up his Temple Archives and is actually the first one to make some Archons in this game. And those Archons are going to actually be a massive boon against the charge loss that Neeb has been going for. Neeb has quite a few charge loss out of the map. He is looking to try and get a bit aggressive yet again, but realizing this is going to be a tough position to break into and decides to back off for the moment.
Yeah, at the same time, DisK has translated his advantage and his success on the other side of the map into an extra base. He is also keeping tabs on Neeb and when he might take his own base. So even though the army complexity has been going in favor of Neeb, the economy has heavily shifted in favor of DisK. If I was to pick a side right now, if we were to resume from replay Ravi and they were like, yeah, okay, Ravi versus Cats for $1 million, I would every time take DisK's position here.
That is entirely fair. Granted, I think that you could probably beat me from Neeb's position too, but I fully, wholeheartedly agree with you. I think I would also prefer DisK's position in this game. We got a DT Shrine in the corner. Gonna get depowered before Blink starts or finishes researching for the DPs, but I think the more pressing matter is just going to be DisK's army moving across the map, denying actually the potential of that 4th base location Neeb was going for. Neeb going to try and secure the other location, but this is not a fun place for Neeb to be, where he's having his 4th base denied for such a long time now.
Yeah, and that's exactly what DisK is doing out on the map, exactly what you just pointed out to. He is just going to go and shark around and make sure that no 4th is being taken. So he has checked this area multiple times now, breaking the rocks. I'm not sure that is the best idea, because that's going to allow for Neeb to flank if Neeb wishes to flank. It's going to allow for DisK to flood into the triangle third if he wanted to. And from the perspective of having this many zealots, that does make a lot of sense. But I think he should have just continued to kind of position and play for denying that 4th base, especially as he's maxed out. So, you know, like, if I were DisK, I think I'd be looking to trade right now. I don't know that he wants to let Neeb just catch up. I mean, I'm pretty sure he doesn't just want to let Neeb catch up, right? Because it's just going to get worse and worse. So he really should have looked to trade there and continue to deny the 4th, I think.
Yeah, I guess it's always a little bit scary trying to force out an engagement can sometimes mean that you also end up taking a really bad trade. And Neeb already able to snag one of the remaining disruptors there for DisK at the very beginning of the fight. Charge lots all charging on forward. Shield battery overcharge is going to get popped. A big disruptor hit in favor of DisK. And we are going to see DisK starting to force Neeb back, even clipping a lot of the units on the retreat. But Neeb returning fire.
That was a huge return of fire indeed. And now DisK is going to try to collapse onto this army. There's a lot of Archons on either side, 3 to 5 actually favoring DisK, but not that many Zealots to be taken down by them. So he's going to have to just back away. The Disruptor shot is going to whiff. On the other side, there's a huge Zealot warp in, and that means it's not at the front, however. So Neeb needs to capitalize on this, because he's taking a lot of damage in the back, and he was already in a precarious economical position. So yeah, he needs to push the issue here. He is going to find the room to do exactly just that. DisK should be evacuating those probes, but he can't find the time to do so by the looks of it. Now does. Will save many of them, but not all, as 13 have already fallen, make it 16, as the taxes for the damage on the other side.
I'm actually really surprised that DisK was clearly microing his Warp Prism around, trying to get these Zealots and to just continue to do more damage, keep those units alive on the harassment. But Neeb had it felt like a comparable-ish army to DisK's, and DisK kind of gave up his 4th base while his army sat at the natural expansion as he was getting out more disruptors and everything. So maybe it was just that he felt like he wasn't going to be able to move down that ramp, but I am surprised that he just let Neeb's army go without actually too much of a fight.
Towards the tail end, you mean, when the Nexus was dying? Yeah, I think that's just, it's difficult to move into Disruptors, right? So once Neeb has that position with the Disruptors, walking into that to try and dislodge it is super difficult, which is the same reason that the Disruptors are so good defensively. But yeah, hard to blame DisK, right? Like, and he had already done a lot of damage on the other side. What I do think is that should have never been allowed to happen, because DisK actually had more army supply and he had more stuff to work with before Neeb got his own disruptors and started pushing out. So DisK seems to have felt like he needed those 2 disruptors, or wanted to secure things with those 2 disruptors, and maybe not trusting himself to have gained the advantages that he did indeed gain in the early portions of this game. A couple of disruptor shots, 3 Zealots will go down. And he was so Zealot heavy that he really should have looked for ways to trade.
Yeah. Neeb going to be able to continue to zone out this army for a little bit. Odd blinks from both sides, actually. And we're going to see DisK's disruptors finally getting close enough that it's going to be able to force Neeb back a little bit, while his own disruptor shots start to regain their charge. I have to note that while DisK did look like he was getting a lot of damage done, I mean, he depowered a lot of buildings. I think he did pick off some buildings as well. At the end of the day, Neeb didn't really lose too much economy during all of that. DisK actually did lose a lot of workers he never really ended up remaking. So yes, Neeb is ahead in army supply, or in overall supply, and a little bit in army supply, but a lot of his supply lead is also in workers. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, for sure. That's going to make the army of DisK pretty scary. He has to be really careful, though. Neither of this is going to kill, but this disruptor shot is at least going to kill 2 disruptors, which is really nice, obviously, for Neeb. He lost 1 disruptor to one of the earlier disruptor shots of DisK, however, and I'm not sure who shot first there, and it looks at it like it was indeed Neeb. Now DisK trying to capitalize on a very aggressive blink forward from Neeb, as he still had plenty of disruptors there, and with that DisK seems to be taking this fight kind of comfortably, but there's still some disruptor shots available, so DisK has to be really careful. So many disruptors on the side of Neeb, but DisK might want to look to capitalize here. Maybe a blink forward wouldn't have been the worst idea, but it is such a difficult decision to make. It's just even more difficult to me to see that army and be like, yeah, let me just disengage. Because once those disruptors all come back into play, it's going to be that much more difficult to re-engage if you're DisK. And like you mentioned, he is now playing at a disadvantage economically and now tech-wise as well after those disruptors went down. So heavy advantage now going into the later stages for Neeb. Do not be deceived too much by the supply. That could have been an equalizer.
Oh, that was a little bit scary there for Neeb, but he does manage to sneak his way out of there. And yeah, exactly. Just DisK basically trading out Neeb's Stalkers, and he lost his own disruptors. So now it's 8 disruptors versus 3. That is a massive difference. And using that economy that we were talking about before, Neeb is actually back at a relatively equal number of Stalkers himself, 27 to 23. The biggest difference now is that DisK actually has a lot of charge lots in the mix, and that can complicate matters quite a bit for the player that is on pure Stalker disruptor. Neeb gonna leave his disruptors a little bit further behind for the moment while the Stalkers try and get a bit of damage done on one side, but Neeb has to be careful. Those disruptors, you don't want to leave them entirely on their own.
Yeah, I think they're looking for shots though, because this didn't necessarily know where that was, but you see the observer of Neeb knew that those zealots were breaking the rocks, and as soon as those rocks are broken, it's very likely that DisK walks on forward. So those disruptors were kind of waiting for the army of DisK to overextend and then surprise him with a disruptor shot from the dark. DisK is going to be forced to blink back here to look for shelter. And yeah, there are zealots here, but they're not amazing here. They're going to serve as a little bit of buffer, but there's not enough zealots. Maybe with those ones, he could get a flank or something like that and try to make it a collapse where the zealots are actually doing a little bit more damage. Because look at this. Otherwise, the zealots, if the stalkers are being tended to, should just trade awfully, right? If you blink one stalker at a time, if you're microing against those zealots, they should never get the surface area to trade efficiently. So you need a ton of zealots to really just kind of flood the stalkers and kind of disable their micro to greater degrees.
Yeah, I think you're either looking for a ton of them or you're looking for just a handful to just absorb the first couple of volleys of attacks. But in that case, you need to be able to guarantee that time that the zealots charge in, that you will be able to force out a fight. Oh my god, scary moment over here.
Yeah.
And Neeb's gonna take a lot of losses on his Stalkers and Disruptors.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. A flanking disruptor, however, will not be tended to on the side of DisK, and so it goes down. DisK finding himself at a supply advantage and at a huge army lead, actually, somehow, some way. He is making this work. In spite lagging behind an army, Neeb is, of course, taking a 5th, but now also DisK looking to match him in the bottom left-hand corner. He has just started his own Nexus, so...
Oh... Biggest thing, though, I think right now is that Neeb, during all this, did manage to find time to get up a Stargate. Already has the fleet beacon done, has carriers on the way. This is, I mean, something we've seen many, many times now, and including today, where one Protoss player is able to get up into the big Sky Toss army transition, and DisK is actually going to scout it out with his big charge lot run by. Neeb is going to roar up in defensively while also trying to micro on the front lines. A lot is happening right now, but one thing is for certain, DisK knows that he needs to do something sooner rather than later if Neeb is that far ahead on the transition.
Yeah, and DisK is a little bit hesitant here. I mean, walking into this many disruptors is never easy. DisK is actually going to go for the walk into a disruptor to pick it off. In spite of all the stalkers shooting at him, he's going to clip two stalkers on the way out as well. Neeb managed to defend his main with those settled warp pins, and DisK knows, like you said, that he is on a little bit of a timer, but continues to just produce disruptors right now. So maybe we'll look to close this game before the carrier count gets out of control.
Oh man, we actually end up seeing the Stalkers blink forward with the Observer there to actually catch. Oh my god, a massive disruptor hit on Neeb's army, the core part of Neeb's army as well, and Neeb is suddenly actually in a world of trouble.
Yeah, that was a massive disruptor hit like you just alluded to, but DisK is actually going to look to disengage, and I'm not sure that was the play. I feel like he had a strong opening to maybe go and siege the production of Neeb there, but he's going to play it the shy way around. He still has gained himself an advantage here, but he's still lagging behind in tech and in economy. So as much as he has the greater army, yeah, and that's why, right? Like, I mean, when you have the better army or the bigger army and you had position there, I feel like that was your opportunity to capitalize, but something made DisK back away and not want to commit further.
He was going to be bleeding out a few of his remaining disruptors.
Nice.
3 disruptors, 1 disruptor left over here for Neeb, and he might actually be losing even more of these as a lot of his stuff is going to go down
I
to
think
the
that might just
disruptor
be
shops.
game. Yeah, I mean, this doesn't continue to push with the army advantage, but he finds himself with the same army somewhere else where he wants to continue to fight, and Neeb is kind of out of options here. DTs are gonna do their best to defend here. 3 observers on the side of Neeb, none on site for DisK, and that's gonna keep Neeb alive. But he did get the carrier count reset, so now he has, you know, that's cool. Now he has a bunch of DTs, but that's pretty much all he has. This observer extremely important. Neeb not gonna go in pursuit of it, however. And yeah, I mean, DisK now with a very solid grasp of this game.
DisK is definitely going to feel a lot more comfortable compared to Neeb after all of those trades. But it's worth mentioning that DisK lost a lot of his disruptors once the DTs came into effect. DisK was at almost 5 or 6 disruptors. He's down to 2, or now actually 3 as a third one just popped out. Bring it back down to 2 as the DT snipes went off. So with that being said, I think DisK is absolutely ahead in this situation, but there is an opportunity here for Neeb to somehow find ways to stabilize, especially as another observer runs into the cannons and DisK only has 1 observer out on the map again. It's not even with his army.
Yeah, but at the same time, I mean, it's gonna have to be through like a Hail Mary play, right? Like with these 3 observers versus the 1 observer, and Neeb actively looking to snipe down that observer down. Good. Nova there is going to secure an extra 2 probes to make it 24, and that brings the probe count very close to each other. But this is the last remaining base that Neeb is mining. On the other side, this does have half a base that's still being mined, so you know he's going to have still the advantageous economic lead. So
I actually don't know if I like Neeb going and back home to defend, because I think if he actually just goes for the final remaining base that DisK is mining from, think about it. Like if you're in a base trade, the player that has a ton of Dark Templar that is up against a player that barely has any observers, like it's been shown to Neeb, he knows that DisK has constantly been bleeding out his observers. I actually think, like, I mean, I will say I am fully admitting I'm heavily biased in this, and being a DT blink like base trader, but I actually think this could be a really good spot for Neeb if he actually just capitalizes and abuses that.
Yeah, at the same time, he does have the smaller army in general, but yeah, DTs do output a lot of damage. It's just like the stalker numbers are not going to favor him. And now realizing that there is going to be an observer available, Neeb is going to have to morph those DTs into Archons, but it gives you even less hope now, because now there's basically no win condition outside of a massive disruptor shot on the side of Neeb. We've seen them from DisK, but we haven't seen a very big one from Neeb yet.
It has been a bit. There is an observer that's getting full vision of Neeb's army over on that high ground, making it very difficult for Neeb to actually get any kind of surprise disruptor hits from the high ground. And DisK is even keeping a lot of his own disruptors pretty far back, just kind of saying, okay, I cannot lose these. That is the one way Neeb can start making some miracles happen in this game. Observer does get sniped off, and there was a couple of those DTs are still alive, I think, on the, or they were alive in the bottom left-hand side of the map, trying to get something done.
Yeah, DisK is gonna find these probes that are distant mining right now, and this is the last of the economy for Neeb. Now, DisK is nearly at 70 supply ahead from Neeb, so this is getting harder and harder. Again, short of a miraculous disruptor shot, Neeb should be dead in the water here. He will finally manage to establish a base, so income should be favoring him for the time being, but maybe not for much longer, as DisK is just looking to close out this game with his army advantage. Neeb is gonna go for the counterattack that you were suggesting earlier, and he will be able to shut down the last mining base from DisK, but I mean that's probably not enough. From here on out, I guess Neeb should recall right now. Nope, too late.
No, I don't.
I mean, he needed to recall. No,
I don't think so. I think you. Okay, I mean, he's just fighting literally the disruptors. I think you actually just go kill the disruptors, right?
I mean, he's dead. The thing is, if he recalled to the last remaining base, he could have at least attempted at holding the high ground with those disruptors against all of this army, and then if you hold that, you have some semblance of a win condition because you're mining and your opponent is not, is what I was thinking, right?
Yeah,
but
that's
as it stands, he would have no win condition. Even if he kills all of those disruptors, if he loses that last remaining mining base, he's always just behind. So, and I think he did kill a lot of those disruptors, right? And it will still not end up mattering because his last remaining mining base is down.
No, I definitely agree with that. I think especially since he just doesn't have... I mean, the win condition I was talking about going for was you have Dark Templar, and neither one of you are mining, if you're able to deny the detection, then you can effectively gradually kill off all of your opponent's units. That's not really a viable win condition when you don't have any DTs left on the map and no gas to make them either.
Yeah, at some point, Neeb had that as an alternative there, and you know, they turned into Archons because he thought, okay, like you have a couple of observers with your army now, it's going to be too difficult to engage. That said, this is looking a little bit closer than I would have thought here, with the Archons tanking a lot of the damage and DisK being a little bit reckless taking this engagement. Actually, focus firing one of the observers as well for no good reason, but it's still going to be barely enough, and DisK will take game number 1 after a well thought out game from both players. Very back and forth on multiple occasions, but it's gonna be the bearded Protoss that takes it in the end. Very cool game.
Yeah, a very, very hectic game toward the end there especially, and I think honestly a really exciting game. Nice job by DisK. I mean, that is actually basically like, that's already the beginning of like kind of an upset, right? DisK is up 1-0 against Neeb, and a lot of people would have predicted. A lot of people did predict in the Twitch chat with the actually Twitch chat predictions. I think if I even take a look at that, they go, yeah, Neeb actually still kind of favored even there. So really, really amazing how good of a job DisK has been able to do already in kind of upsetting a lot of people's predictions on this series.
Yeah, without a doubt, there will be no 2-0 for Neeb, that's for sure. But I mean, this could take it 2-0, which is kind of crazy, right? I don't think anyone saw that one coming if it ends up materializing here. The next map is going to be 2000 atmospheres. And yeah, that was hectic, Ravi. That was hectic and very mirrored at the same time. They were working with a lot of the same tools at a lot of the same stages. And this did really well, I think, to capitalize on scouting. Like you pointed out during the game, when he scouts the transition from Neeb, it was super early, and he really played that well. I thought that there were opportunities where this could have maybe seized the game sooner, where he maybe could have sieged the production with a greater army that he had and the position that he had on the disruptors. But he still just went to the, you know, for the economy game, he went to the other side, and he still found the fights with a greater army supply out in the open. So very cool gameplay from DisK. And now we're heading on to 2000 atmospheres to see if he can close it 2-0 or if Neeb will make a comeback.
Absolutely. Well, we're getting ready to move in, and we'll go ahead and introduce the players. Remember that this is for that first or second seed spot in the group. So who's going to have to face off versus Scarlet, and who's going to have to face off versus Estrella. Starting down here on the bottom left-hand side of the map, we have our blue Protoss player. He goes by the name of DisK from Apprentice Esports.
And in the top right-hand side, it is going to be the red Protoss player. He is Neeb for Onsite Gaming.
Okay. Well, I mean, that last game at the very beginning of it, which is a long time ago now, cats, because that was kind of a really cool and hectic game that I think, even if it wasn't the longest game by any means of like what we've seen today, it was very action-packed and a lot of stressful stuff happening that got hectic. So I think it felt very long. But way back at the start of it, we ended up seeing very mirrored macro safe kind of style openings, you know, getting into 2 Stalkers and 2 Sentries, going into a Twilight Council, gradually kind of working your way up. We saw like a Blink attempt, or sorry, a DT attempt there from Neeb, but got scouted, so he didn't really commit super hard to it. I mean, overall, it was like actually both players very okay with going into macro.
Yeah, very much so. That was a very tense game as well. Lots of turning points there. It was a little bit on the crazy side, but a lot of mistakes also being made from either player. Big disruptor shots, primarily just from DisK though, so we're looking for those from Neeb if he's gonna go that route. There can be a little bit of RNG, you know, but it's also a lot of how much attention your opponent is paying and how much attention you are paying, and it's a very much depending on the position of the play and so on. So Neeb is gonna have to step it up a little bit in those regards.
We'll see if either one of these players are actually going to dish out anything super different. I mean, just going to go for the double Stalker opening versus Neeb's also double Stalker, but mild difference from the Stalker Sentry. Just went for in game number 1. This is yet another map where there's not a high ground to your natural. So it is not exactly the easiest thing to just take a super duper fast Nexus. There is some degree that you have to be wary of any kind of like a big attacks that come your way.
Yeah, it's going to be a double stalker opening on either side this time around, and actually a Stargate follow-up on both sides as well. So this could get a little bit awkward because if they catch wind of this, then the correct thing to do is often going to be for going for Phoenix over the Oracles. Yeah, Roddy always says, and it is true that it's not like the Oracle and the Phoenix have this terrible matchup anymore because the Phoenix do take a little bit longer to kill the Oracle. But if it's caught out in the open, if it is accounted for, if there is a shield battery out for the first Oracle, for example, on the other side, there is no doubt in my mind that the Phoenix is a little bit favored. So Neeb is actually gonna kill the Scout of Probe of DisK, but not before DisK gets the information though. So DisK more likely now to open Phoenix. Both are gonna choose Oracle regardless though.
Yep. Both of them will go for Oracle just to try and get a little bit of damage done. Kind of interesting little skirmish also in the center of the map with both of the players moving out, but Neeb actually pulled a probe with him as he moved out so that when the two stalkers or the four stalkers end up encountering each other, Neeb had a little DPS advantage that would allow his stalkers to kind of win that fight. Just kind of had to respect that until Neeb was basically forced to recall and deal with the probe. So lots of little interesting things going on. Nothing too game deciding by any way, shape, or form. But what is kind of cool is that DisK is going to go for the second Oracle as well. So he is basically saying, look, even if you have a shield battery, I'm going to still be able to break through. But he didn't actually go for a shield battery in his main base. In fact, he's really just saying, I'm going to get all the stalkers I need up to defend against an Oracle.
Yeah, and that's going to be plenty because he made 4 right away. DisK stopped at 2 and then added additional ones, so he was a little bit slower to his third and fourth stalker, but now he has them. The Neeb Oracle is going to show up at the main base of DisK. It's going to find a shield battery, and it's going to have to back away. The other Oracle is looking to join its brother, and in the back of the main of Neeb, somehow, some way, will it be able to find an avenue here past those stalkers as they can together one-shot workers, but with 3 stalkers in the middle line, it's kind of going to be pretty difficult, Ravs.
Yeah. Well, at least the Oracle does finally make its way into spotting out the Twilight Council, Chrono boosting out Blink. I mean, that is all expected, I should say. But I think at least seeing that there is Blink being researched, it kind of does also solidify your mind saying, okay, it's not like a Dark Trine or something coming out. Neeb's Oracle getting caught in the bottom left-hand side, actually, right now by the Phoenix. We are going to end up seeing Recall being used, but I think it wasn't quite off of cooldown for quite a bit of time, so it takes a bit more damage than you would want. Still gets out of there alive, though.
Yeah, so there was just the one Phoenix to shoo away that first Oracle of Neeb, but there wasn't any further commitment from Neeb, whereas DisK did commit for the second Oracle, and he also committed for the extra shield battery earlier. So Neeb, with those extra investments on the side of DisK, has managed to sneak out his own Blink deck a little bit sooner than DisK has any option to do so. So I kind of like, after the early game, the position of Neeb just a little bit better, and DisK will be taking a faster third, however.
Faster third indeed. With a Blink finishing up, it does mean that we get into the really fun part of the game where one player has Blink a lot earlier than the other. That actually does open up a lot of opportunities. That's assuming Neeb can find an opportunity where he can move out without worrying about these Oracles doing tons of damage to his mineral line. I think that is going to be one massive thing that Neeb really wants to find these Oracles for, is if he can find them, he can safely move out with his stalkers and actually be annoying and actually take a bit of map control. But right now, DisK really is the one that has full map control. He's the one that knows, okay, I constantly see your army. Your army has to respect my Oracles, or I come in and do things like this.
Yeah, this is actually pretty huge. Finally finding some value out of those Oracles. One will fall, but now Blink is ready for Neeb, but not before 7 probes go down. So Neeb finally finding some value out of those, and that is a pretty decent gap that he creates for himself, especially considering that there will be a faster third for him. That means faster chrono boost and faster additional probe production. So the gap should technically, lengthen, if anything, on the side of DisK on the back of that.
Well, Neeb is going to try and move across the map and see what he can get done. It's 17 stalkers to 15. Now 16 as a couple additional warped in stalkers finished up there for DisK, but DisK's Blink is not actually quite done yet, and Neeb gets into a very interesting position over here. Guardian Shield gets popped, which is going to help keep these stalkers alive a little bit longer. Funny enough, Force Fields actually would have done wonders since Blink wasn't finished up in time. But we are going to see Neeb taking the trades, and at a very, very nice concave. The problem is a lot of his stalkers are actually attacking probes, not the stalkers of DisK.
Yeah, that was pretty decent. Now DisK finally with Blink will be able to actually blink, and luckily for Neeb, he evacuated pretty much at the perfect time right before DisK got his own blink. And that means, oh, be careful, Neeb. Just leave whatever Stalker gets caught here. But actually, he gets the Phoenix in return, so he knows better for sure. And is that a stasis? Okay, that's a stasis. For a second, I thought he was walking into DisK's trap as his oracles were there sharking around. But yeah, that could have actually been worse for Neeb. And he retreats at a very prudent time. And as a result, he has 59 workers to 50. So never mind the advantages that we were talking about in terms of economy for DisK. They have swapped around in favor of Neeb now.
Yeah, Neeb's going to be feeling pretty comfortable with how this game has progressed up until this point. He's adding on a Dark Shrine as well, so that's about halfway done. This is actually finding Neeb very out of position right now. The Stasis Trap going to alert Neeb to the positioning of all these Stalkers. Awkward fight on the ramp for Neeb. He's got a massive Convex against DisK's Concave at the top of the ramp. It looks like Neeb is going to be able to scare DisK off for now. We try and go after this one Stalker. Yep, managed to kill that off. And DisK ends up backing all the way off to the Xel'Naga Watchtower since Revelations on those Stalkers. Not a whole lot that he can do about Neeb knowing exactly where they are.
Yeah, Dark Shrine is going to finish up for Neeb here. Let's see what he can make do with those. That could create further advantages on the economic front. So let's see. DisK is going to finish up his robotics bay and is adding an additional robo. So probably looking to go into the disruptors a little bit more heavily. What's up? What happened?
The two DTs getting warped in the bottom right, but DisK is also scouting out the location of that proxy pylon, and all the Stalkers for DisK for the most part are sitting over the third base. That's where Neeb's army is, but Neeb is running in with the DT. He's going to see what damage he can get done. Already a photon cannon prepared for him, though. Well done by DisK. Already actually super ready for the DTs.
Yeah, there's an observer also at the third. So these DTs are going to kind of struggle to find anything. By the looks of it, maybe Archons will be their chosen form here instead. But no, Neeb is actually going to double down and get DT Blink as well. So a very interesting choice as he gets his own Twilight Templar Archives rather to maybe make his own Archons off of primarily gas. So looking to dump the gas elsewhere. Heavy on Zealots is Neeb, but he doesn't really have any disruptor transition. So he's going to be choosing to play a little bit more of an aggressive style, whereas DisK is going to look to scale into the better Protoss army, to be honest.
Definitely a scary looking army coming out there from DisK, and I think for Neeb to make this kind of composition he's going for work, he is going to need to probably take faster expansions than DisK is, and he is able to actually shut down the fifth base of DisK. That is very, very nice. Remember, Neeb's army is going to be a lot more mobile if he has a lot of Blink Stalkers, a lot of charge lots, and even just like Blink DTs running around. He can hit in multiple angles. He can shut down bases from multiple sides. I think that's where Blink DTs can actually really shine. If you can pull the army out of position to one side with your main army, and then 5 to 6 DTs with Blink on top of cannons, snipe them off, and actually take out bases. So I think this is the way that Neeb can make this style work, but he really has to be careful about how he does it.
Yeah, those are very, very, very good points. DisK had an observer that hadn't been spotted from Neeb for a very long time, and that allowed for this to know exactly where the army of Neeb was. There comes the DT Blink, and the reveal is very successful. It's going to take some probes here on the way out. One of the DTs will enter the main, but the rest of them remain in the natural kind of to get picked off. The one in the main doesn't stand a chance against a cannon with a shield battery. And Neeb at least killed the observer on this side of the map, so DisK has to hesitate and doesn't really know where the army of Neeb is. Neeb would do well to posture to take the other potential fourth base, as he is now spotting for the one that he was kind of guarding with, I believe, a Zealot or something on that position. Yeah, it's a Zealot. But DisK is now going to find it.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, DisK clips a couple of these Zealots, but he is still struggling to get up that new bases. Bases being established on the bottom center side, while a couple of force fields lock in a handful of these Stalkers over there for DisK. Unable to get out of there using that Blink upgrade. But if Neeb identifies the bottom center base, I wouldn't be surprised if he either did another DT run by to that location while his army is up for the third, or if he wants to actually do like the opposite swing in of handful of DTs run into the third base, draw the army over there, swing into the fourth base with your main army. I think it's going to be tough for him to break it with just one attack side.
Yeah, this is a lot of stalkers as well. The Zealots are not going to do too great other than, like you were saying earlier, soak up some shots. And when Disruptors start getting involved, DisK has so many more of those. So Neeb does capitalize on a blink, however, clips 2 of those stalkers on the way out. And that is nice for him. He has started adding his own Disruptors. And with his more basic army composition, he did secure himself a greater economy, a faster 4th, and now a position to go into a faster 5th as well. Nice blink there. Forward from DisK. Looked a little bit sketch for a second, but not enough Disruptors really for Neeb to punish.
Yeah, nicely done there by DisK. If Neeb identifies that he did snipe off the Observer yet again, I mean, at this stage, when it gets into just I'm pumping out non-stop Disruptors from my robotics facilities, in that situation, it can mean that you're oftentimes trying to replenish your Disruptors. So it is harder to actually find time to make new Observers. And if he is actually going to try and capitalize on that, force DisK to make more Observers, he could, again, try and go for some more of this DT harassment. I love that he's just even mixing in 1 or 2 DTs. I think it's even just that alone is enough to just say, like, hey, use one cycle that you're not making Disruptors. You're going to make an Observer instead. It's going to give me time to catch up. And he's already actually at 6 to 8 now.
Yeah, and if we look at the bank and if we look at the supply, you know, Neeb has been ahead for a little bit. If we look at the income graph, that is what Neeb owes his advantage to. He has had an income advantage for the majority of this game now, and it has been exacerbated in the last few minutes. But it all comes down still to one fight. We saw this type of advantage swing over and over and over again in the first game, and here we've already seen one of those swings earlier. But Neeb has managed to retain the advantage in terms of economy, at least.
Neeb going for some snipes on Disruptors, picking them off one by one. Oh my god, it's one big Disruptor hit at the very, very end of that, though. DisK actually saying, I know you're going to blink back. Let me go ahead and send one Disruptor shot really far back. And he does sag quite a few, but I mean, he loses so many Disruptors in that trade.
Yeah, I have to imagine at the end of the day, that was great. Still for Neeb, resets a lot of the Disruptor count. He needs to continue to use those Disruptors. Oh, many shots as well. So this going for the same type of move here. Gonna allow Neeb to take some decent trades, however, and kind of manages to take most of his Disruptors there to shelter in the back. So all in all, Neeb taking very good trades. This trying to do the same moves, trying to catch up and trying to punish Neeb on the retreat after he lost so many of those Disruptors from Neeb's very impressive maneuvering. And now it's Neeb, like Neil just showed us, with a great transition into carriers. This time around, as long as he doesn't overcommit with his army out on the map and just gives himself a little bit of time to breathe and to kind of secure that transition, he should be in an incredible position to close this game out.
Yeah, absolutely. Ooh, almost gets that Disruptor, but doesn't quite. Good thing for Neeb that he did not end up blinking still into the position of that Disruptor where the shot was, since he didn't actually kill it. Looks like Neeb is going to have to back off, but that sounds like a Watchtower actually paying massive dividends and just being able to spot out exactly where the army is, see Disruptor shots coming from a good ways away. And he knows, yeah, there's no Disruptors actually complementing this little Stalker force pushing forward. So he knows he can just push this back with a few shots of his own.
Yeah, and it's good that he uses just one Disruptor forward. If that happens, then DisK has to decide, do I blink backwards, do I blink forward? If he blinks forward, then Neeb can use the extra 3 or 4 Disruptors that he has. And in doing that, he can just, you know, save this position, like you were saying, with the very good control that the Watchtower offers him. And now having carriers out, his army continues to get more complex. He can trade some of these Stalkers now. He can afford to get even hit by 1 or 2 bad Disruptor shots and still be in a very advantageous position.
Yeah, has to be really careful. Neeb is playing with fire with some of these walk forward, snipe off a Disruptor after it fires its shots kind of moves. Oh, he's going to eat a massive connection there. That actually might give DisK confidence to start moving on forward. He blinks forward into the Disruptors. He hits a lot of Disruptor shots himself. And now Neeb has confidence, so he blinks forward. And now DisK is going to fire on his own Disruptor shots.
Yeah, and Neeb wanting to punish that on the retreat for DisK as well with his own blink back, but it ends up being that DisK had not utilized most of his own Disruptor shots just yet. So Neeb still with an advantage here, but those were some very chaotic moments. Huge Disruptor shots on either side there.
Yeah, I actually think that was absolutely absurd. But at the end of the day, I think Neeb's still going to be happier with how things turned out. And I actually love the idea. Again, I know I keep coming back to the DTs, but I think this is like such a massive opportunity. Neeb almost gets every disruptor of DisK. DisK narrowly managing to prevent that situation that actually probably would have ended the game right there. He's going to be able to back up, reinforce with more stalkers, and I mean, he is entirely all in on just making this kind of army work now. It is going to be way too difficult to actually transition and get up carriers kind of to match what Neeb is doing already.
Yeah, so now we're looking at different tactics perhaps on the side of this.
Oh,
the
boy.
problem for him is a lot of the time when you have this...
on the north side, moving around.
Yeah, they're not gonna amount to much. There's like a very fortified position for this here. But yeah, I was gonna say, when you have the advantage that Neeb has, usually you are working with less bases. Usually you haven't had map control to work with. But this time around, it's the opposite. Neeb has the technology and he has the map control. He has more bases. He has more economy. He has been mining more of the map. He can spread out his probes to mine more efficiently. So he has every advantage in that regard. So the options are very limited for DisK, because normally if DisK's map looked like Neeb's, we would be thinking, okay, Neeb's army is better, but DisK has that mobility. He has that map control. He can actually go and maybe play for the base trade. As it stands, very difficult for DisK to do anything, because as soon as he tries to move elsewhere, Neeb will start killing him a little bit sooner because he's already here at his doorstep. Hello. All right, well. All right, Ravi's audio seems to have died here a little bit, so I'll continue this one for now. But yeah, Neeb is going to continue to contain DisK here, and that is absolutely a wonderful tactic from Neeb. As long as he can keep tabs on the army of DisK, he will be in a very advantageous position, looking for those disruptors, as we can tell by the trajectory of the disruptors of Neeb. And the core of this army composition is going to be the carriers. A Blink Stalker forward, very daring for Neeb there. And actually, with the carriers, Neeb with very good focus fire takes care of all but one disruptor. The last one is going to go down to the next Blink. And now Neeb, with all the cards, he's going to look to push on forward. This has to work some magic here, kind of some way, somehow. He needs to... I'm sorry, my producer just said something, but I hope it's not super important. Is Ravi back?
Yeah, I am back. Sorry about that. My headset died for some reason. I have no idea why, but we are seeing a crazy engagement over here. Carrier gets sniped off by DisK with a nice blink forward. The DisK is definitely falling a lot in supply right now. Neeb is the one with the power army that is going to be hard to contend with. Can DisK mount some kind of miraculous final defense here? He is going to get a very big surround on the ground army, at least.
Yeah, no, it's over. It's going to be Neeb cleaning things out. And even if DisK somehow managed a miraculous hold, he would have been down to half a base against like 4 mining bases still of Neeb. So that game was pretty much in Neeb's control the entire time. He played to his win condition, and he managed to transition those advantages into not just economy, but also tech, also army. So really kind of like a very well-rounded win where it felt like he was never at risk for the later half.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I really enjoyed the way that Neeb was actually ended up playing that game in the end. It was a very stressful game to watch, I think, whether you're a DisK fan or a Neeb fan. But either way, we end up seeing a tied-up series now. Cats 1-1. So we're going to definitely go to a game 3. And I feel like really either one of these players could end up taking this. This has actually been such a close and back-and-forth series.
Yeah, and both games up until now have had swings. It's just that Neeb played this second game good enough that once he got the advantage, because he wasn't always advantaged during this game, but once he got it, he didn't let go. Whereas in the first game, we had swings back and forth like maybe 4 or 5 times, right? So let's see if players can keep their composure and kind of hold on to whatever advantages they managed to get in the early and mid game, or if we're gonna have chaos yet again like we had in that first game.
Yeah, map is going to be hardwire, and I do feel like this is sometimes the time that maybe like a Neeb or someone might throw out a little bit of something cheesier or a little something cheekier. I do feel like either one of these players could probably feel comfortable and confident, though, like saying, I will bring this out into like a macro game or a standard solid style again, because I think both of them have definitely showcased that they have the right to feel a bit confident that they could win a macro game versus the other one.
At the same time, the longer the game goes, the less confident I feel for this, because he hasn't shown us the willingness to transition into carriers, right? Even though he has won against Neeb's transition into carriers, it was on the back of scouting it and closing it in the later stages of the mid game. So Either way, we'll see if DisK has that in his toolshed or if that is even necessary at all. In the bottom left-hand side of the map of Hardwire, this final map to determine who wins the group, it is Neeb for Onsite Gaming.
And up in the top right-hand side of the map, we have our blue Protoss player from NA Apprentice Esports. He is DisK. It's actually just Apprentice Esports, but for some, there's a tournament called NA Apprentice run by the exact same person who owns the Apprentice Esports team. And I cannot get it out of my head to just say NA Apprentice instead of Apprentice Esports.
And they are mostly NA based as well, right? Do they have any non-NA players? I think not.
No, it's a very NA-centric team. It's owned by Sugar SC2, who is a lover of the North American scene and puts on a wonderful NA Apprentice tournament, which is actually really, really fun and highlights a lot of literally just the same kind of top players you'd see in a season of DreamHack SC2 Masters for North America. So if you're watching this, if you are open with the stream on this show, it is probably a tournament that would be of interest to you as well.
All right. So yeah, we have these openers here, and they're going to be pretty much mirrored yet again. So we'll find out what the differences are once we have those two first units coming out. Both players are also going to go for an early scout, relatively anyway.
Yeah. As PvP does take a few minutes to start ramping on up, we see pretty normal openings and stuff from both sides. I do quickly just want to check in on some of the other matches that have just finished up in the groups. Not every single other match is finished up, but we do have the results of Masa 2-0ing Uko. So Masa was able to put another one on the board, and M. Canning ended up 2-0ing Binsky. So both of those players put another win on the board. I don't think either one of those are affecting the group standings or anything a crazy amount outside of like some kind of weirder win condition kind of stuff. But yeah, nicely done.
Indeed. So now the Sentry Stalker opening here, trying to hide the Sentry West disc, but Neeb is going to be able to spot it. And on the other side, Neeb does have a double Stalker opening, but he's not looking to double down on Stalkers or anything to punish the Sentry early on. He will drop an earlier Stargate. Yep,
earlier Stargate for Neeb is going to be nice. DisK, if you're wondering, always keeps throwing down that pylon at the low ground of Neeb's ramp. Neeb has done the same thing as well. You're usually just trying to get a peek eye out on what exactly the first two gateway units are coming out from your opponent. Based on that, sometimes you may say, oh, you're making adepts. Like, I should be a little bit more cautious and have my probe ready instead of mining to just build a shield battery at my wall in. Or maybe you go see someone going for like something really crazy greedy, like double sentry, and you think, if I go for a Stalker right now, I might be able to just kill them. So just a little bit of extra information to inform you on what you could potentially be doing.
Yeah, DisK actually followed this up with the 2 additional sentries, and Neeb didn't make any additional units from his gateway. So just opened 2 Stalkers straight into that Stargate, and that's going to allow Neeb to have the money. If you look at the money of Neeb, it's down near 0, right? So he never made additional units. That is how much faster he is going to be able to continue to advance in his tech path, and that is dropping a very quick Twilight Council here that was not spotted by DisK, I don't believe, by his hallucination. So he waits until DisK has done that, and he is keeping up basically with DisK in terms of like the blink timing, or at least not too far behind them, while still having an Oracle out by virtue of cutting a lot of units, identifying from the first entry that DisK wasn't going to be aggressive.
Yeah, nice little greed play from Neeb based on, like you said, some of that early scouting information or early inferences on DisK not really being able to be aggressive himself. Now, the Oracle managed to stay alive and did manage to already snag a single worker kill, which honestly is more than I thought I would be able to find given how well defended DisK is actually in both of his mineral lines with shield battery and workers units in every mineral line. Adepts are going to actually let that shade finish forward, trying to focus down some of these probes. Oracles dive back in with 2 of them, and both of them managed to survive to the very end and snag 6 workers. Definitely not too shabby there for Neeb.
Yeah, not too bad. Pretty cool tactic by Neeb there. He actually syncs up everything, of course, but lets the Adepts take a few shots, which makes it a very difficult decision for DisK, right? Do I go after the bruised up Adepts, or do I start focus firing the Oracles, which output much more faster damage? Their beams, their attack rate is going to be faster than the Adepts. So Neeb thinks maybe he's gonna go after, or I don't know what he thinks, but in any case, he stops microing or focus firing with the adepts. He stops shift clicking the adepts because he assumes that DisK is gonna. I think that he assumes that DisK is gonna end those first, but DisK turns its attentions to the oracles, I think, as he should.
This actually might be a potential kill move over here for DisK. He is going to find Neeb at a very awkward time where he doesn't have Blink. He's still finishing up his gateway. He's going to find Neeb a little bit away from his shield battery. There comes out a force field just to try and zone out some of these stalkers, but Neeb is losing a lot of his units very, very quickly. Shield battery overcharge is going to get popped, and it looks like just barely DisK did not have the firepower, but force fields actually lock out a lot of Neeb's units from the shield battery overcharge, and so he's going to end up losing so many of his stalkers.
Yeah, right before Blink too. That was a little bit of a mistake from Neeb, maybe anticipating that his Blink would be able to finish in time there, and it wasn't. There's going to be a little bit of a recall here for the Oracles, as Neeb needs everything that he can to try and defend here. He was continuing with his greed. He's still 9 workers ahead, and now he does have Blink. So with his Oracles, he should be able to push this back. There are no reinforcements, no Warp Prism, no forward pylon from DisK. And that means that Neeb will end up stabilizing. But yeah, that did get a little bit dangerous there, as Neeb chased, knowing that there were sentries out with a lot of energy, and knowing perhaps that his Blink wasn't done. But it was like 95% done at that point. So yeah, very difficult to judge, right? Like, you might be thinking, okay, my Blink will be done any second now. But it was, 3 seconds any second too late.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it was so close to potentially being a kill move. And, well, DisK is actually going to find 2, 3, 4 stalkers over here for almost free. And Neeb actually blinks forward. The rest of his stalkers still outnumbered over here, having to pull probes off the mineral line. And this actually might still be that kill move we were talking about. Well, DisK is still not reinforcing, so I don't know if he'll actually be able to kill Neeb here. He does actually finally even up that worker count entirely.
Yeah, but Neeb is going to find workers on the other side of the map, making it so that the worker count actually stays in his favor. So yeah, he evened it out for a little bit, but those 9 probes that the Oracle killed are exactly the difference that we have between those workers. So DisK equalized only for Neeb to retake that advantage, and in spite of all of his best efforts, Neeb has somehow continued to stabilize here, just with a poke from those Oracles that he made in the early game.
Yeah. Really weird back and forth trades with these Blink Stalker attacks here from DisK. And he's going to try and take some trades here yet again. But the shield battery is going to help out quite a bit with those kind of trades, since
good Blink
Stalkers that blink back for Neeb are able to heal back up. Warp Prism going to be able to save a few of those Stalkers on the retreat. Neeb able to find yet again. There's still just no shield battery over here at this third base location, and forcing some warp-ins back at home means that DisK is also pulled off on the offensive for a little bit. Neeb is able to buy himself a little bit more time to get up some more gateways and just warp in some additional stalkers. At this point, I think Neeb should feel pretty okay. He's actually outnumbering the stalkers of DisK, which I think has not really been the case for a lot of these trades.
Yeah, for sure. Neeb now with some clear advantages, 6 workers ahead. The tech is pretty similar here as was that +1? Actually, it's +1 completing for DisK, where Neeb is just starting. So DisK still holds some advantages. He's also getting his own Templar archives, I believe, a little bit quicker than Neeb has. So yeah, DisK still very much in this game. He does have some different advantages to work with, but it is Neeb now clearly with the economic lead, and that is the lead that he kind of snowballed last time around. So let's see if DisK can do something this time to, get some juice out of his greater army complexity and his better upgrades for a little bit.
Ooh. Neeb manages to find the Warp Prism and is going to soften up one of the Adepts. The other Adepts are going to be able to shade in, pick off maybe 3 workers over here, as he does find that final kill there. Honestly, I gotta say, Cats, this game is just so back and forth with them poking and prodding and stuff. It actually reminds me a little bit of like an early game ZVZ with just hyper mobile lings running back and forth, and continuously each player trading out on, like, now I have an economic lead, now I have an economic lead, and just trading out their army supply.
Yeah, little bailing rumbys here and there. Like, yeah, the Oracle has done fantastic. DisK has had the straight up fights more often than not go in his way. And I was gonna say, Neeb kind of caught up. Oh, actually, he's getting ahead in terms of upgrades. I thought that was for a second DisK. But I was gonna say, yeah, DisK had that upgrade advantage that I was talking about, and he has just let go of it by virtue of not paying attention or not prioritizing it in any case. So now he has a timing where He does have the greater army complexity. He has that Archon to work with against the tech of Neeb that is trying to go into charge lot. Not ideal against the Archon, though there is only one for the time being. And he does two Immortals, which does have two Immortals, which are excellent against this Stalker. So there is a chance that this can close things out here. But if he doesn't, if the game is semi-even after this poke, then we will have once again Neeb with 4 bases, with the better upgrades and just the better position overall heading into the late game. So DisK very much looking for that kill move this time around. Ravi, will he find it? We will see.
Neeb spotted out the army finally. Almost kills the Observer of DisK over there. I like that he's going for the Stasis Trap as well. If he actually kills the Observer, he will be able to maybe make a little bit more use of that Stasis Trap. Even just the single Zealot getting trapped for a little bit, it's a kind of weird, awkward force field that I think DisK doesn't want to quite engage into when Neeb is actually well positioned.
Yeah, I mean, DisK will poke forward. He will see, okay, we have similar armies. You know, I'm counting it. I don't really see my advantages. He still had, in my opinion, like a little bit better of an army with the Immortals, but, you know, you can easily nullify a lot of that with the shield batteries in the back, like our Observer is showing us. So DisK now finding a little bit of an opportunity perhaps to run in some Zealots. He's going to think better of that, but he already gave up on this attack sort of when he started getting his further tech into Robotics Bay, right? He is looking for that Disruptor transition, but so is Neeb, and Neeb is dropping the double Robo. Now DisK also starts his +2 attack, but again, this is a DisK that had like half of an upgrade worth of an advantage on Neeb in terms of that +1, and then let go of that advantage in favor of this attack, in favor of massing these units that didn't amount to anything. So Neeb now, again, going into the late game, a much stronger position than DisK.
Yeah, it's definitely reflected in just the income as well. Neeb having about 300 more gas per minute, 300 to 400 more gas per minute, just coming in from that extra 4th base that was started up a lot sooner than DisK, and is going to be able to utilize now triple Disruptor production. That first wave of Disruptors is going to pop out, and he's immediately going to actually overtake DisK in terms of Disruptor counts. It's going to be a very, very sudden rise and spike there for Neeb's army supply and just his army power overall.
Yeah, DisK is nearly maxed, but yeah, that just means that he's gonna have less army complexity to work with, because Neeb is kind of leaving room open to max out on better army. And yeah, I mean, DisK has the greater army supply right now, +20 army supply, but walking into Disruptors is no easy task. And yeah, Neeb very fast to start his +3. We'll see if DisK this time around can actually keep up on those on that regard, because otherwise things gonna go from bad to worse. And yeah, Neeb with
I really like actually something that subtly happened in the bottom left-hand side. DisK snuck the War Prism into the far bottom left-hand side, waited for the opportune moment, sees that engagement is about to break out. Oh, he's paying attention to the War Prism, though, and he hits some big Disruptor shots. He's still going to be able to snipe off a lot of Neeb's Disruptors, but ends up having to back off while the Warp-In happens in the main base, and Neeb is going to try and defend, but while he's defending, ends up losing most of his Disruptors on the front lines.
Yeah, that was a very prompt blink as well. If we are to do a Juniper replay, maybe that's the moment I just want to see, because I think that Neeb was looking at his main and then must have looked back to avoid that Disruptor shot at the last possible second. So the multitasking and the reaction time must have been just instantaneous from Neeb to avoid that huge Disruptor shot from DisK. That could have been game turning, and that is the beauty and kind of like just the volatility of this Disruptor versus Disruptor style.
No doubt. I think that's an excellent candidate that I would love to see the first-person perspective of. Now, Neeb is going to end up losing that fresh base that he had just established over there. He really only has 2 Disruptors to his name at the moment, but he should still have a 3rd one coming in to reinforce soon. And again, he has 3 robos. This is actually the power of 3 robotics facilities that Neeb went for, is that when he does take non-ideal trades like that, he can flood out Disruptors and catch back up with just 2 rounds of robo production. He can catch back up to like 6 Disruptors, and oh god, finds 2 of the Disruptors there for DisK and a handful of more units. Might found more over here, but not able to let any of those Disruptor shots finish.
Yeah, and that means that DisK is actually going to kill a couple of those Disruptors, right? So DisK now with a little bit of a queue up onto the War Prism, probably not gonna amount to much, as there's already Stalkers in the main for Neeb. Now Neeb is looking for a big flank here, but he's not well set up yet, and that means as his army gets caught in the back, that the opportunity for DisK to retreat or even to take an engagement just against half of the army of Neeb was arising. So Neeb not able to capitalize on that move. DisK will be allowed to live another day.
Yep, you will for the moment. Neeb is kind of looking like he's sharking around with a lot of units. His main army following not too far behind. Disruptor shot's coming out. He lands a disruptor shot on every single disruptor that DisK had out. And now we see a very awkward engagement. Disruptors coming in from the back from DisK, but Neeb target fires it down. Another one comes forward and it's from behind the smoke. Neeb does not notice, but he blinks forward aggressively to snipe off the Immortals and dodges the shot almost on accident.
Almost on accident. This disruptor was flanking, but inadvertently will get taken out. And with that, Neeb secures a 5th base while denying DisK's 4th base, while having doubled his bank, both minerals and gas. Scratch that. It's much more now that DisK has attempted at spending his own gas. He has twice the army supply. Right now, it's all Neeb, and he's looking to close the series out 2-1, and he is going to do so. If not now, then just a little bit later, because like you said, he also has triple robo production. He basically has full control of this game, and now there's very little that this can do to try and catch back up. It's Ogre, Ravi.
Nicely played there by Neeb. I mean, DisK putting up a heck of a fight in this game, but you can see it is really difficult to break through that. GG, it's called.